Well, it's just about all over except the voting, unless the voting has taken place early, but early voting is coming to an end. Primary day is here almost, and we'll talk about that and some other things with our political insiders, conservative commentator Abdul-Hakim Shabazz from IndyPolitics.org and Democratic insider Brian Gaddie. Primary day is upon us. This primary has not gotten widespread attention statewide. It is a midterm, but in individual races, Abdul, will start with you. Particularly on the Republican side, there's a whole lot going on. I don't know how that's going to drive voter turnout and drive people to the polls, but certainly some attention-getting claims, ads, whatnot, in congressional primary races and in some state legislative races, too.
Well, the funny thing I always joke and say, politics is like war, and truth is always the first casualty. So anything you get in the mail, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to advise you right now, just throw it away because it's probably, it's not a lie, but it's factually inaccurate. It's a good thing that people weren't saying, were testifying under oath, otherwise they'd be accused of having perjury. Now, with that said, it's politics, and this is what people do. I mean, we get several pieces in the mail every day in our household. For me and my wife, a lot of it's like, hey, just throw it in the trash here because we early voted and we got it all taken care of. However, I do think on the Republican side, though, Ray, it's an interesting challenge between conservative candidates and further ideological conservative candidates. So this quote-unquote freedom liberty caucus group, which is for medical freedom, which is against vaccine mandates, which is against CRT, the whole 9 yards. And so the question is going to be in a midterm election, which is generally low to begin with, who's going to show up? Is it going to be the more conservative, more establishment type voters, or is it going to be these freedom ideological liberty voters? And that's what it's going to turn out, particularly on the Republican side of things.
In the first congressional district, northern Indiana, Republicans think they can be competitive in the fall, and I'll get the Democrat. I know what the Democrat response is going to be, Brian Gaddie. We'll get to that in a second. But this primary has turned particularly nasty the last couple of weeks between former LaPorte Mayor Blair Milo and Jennifer Ruth Green, who correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that she has run for office before, but you talk about those mailers. Jennifer Ruth Green came out with one calling Blair Milo a liberal, a never Trump liberal, which you and I both know Blair Milo is anything but liberal, but that's where we are right now.
Exactly. And Blair Milo is a practical conservative because she was a mayor. And as a mayor, you don't really do ideology. It's fix potholes. It's it's deal with crime and infrastructure and bring jobs in. And so to say Blair Milo is liberal once again is another one of those statements that if it were said under oath would be perjurous. So once again, folks need to keep that in mind. Now, what Ruth Green is playing on is Trump's popularity amongst Republicans in the first congressional district. I'm not sure what that number is yet, but it's going to be interesting. Now, the first district is a lot more Republican than it used to be, but I still think the odds favor the incumbent.
Brian Gaddie, you've been on record saying exactly what Abdul just said, that you thought that Congressman Mervan was going to be reelected easily. It would seem to be to Congressman Mervan's advantage if the pro-Trump candidate perhaps won this primary. What do you think?
Absolutely. This district still is a strong Democratic Party district, and the infighting that's going on the other side, the far right and the right, they're fighting each other, and all that's going to do is just benefit us Democrats. So I think Congressman Mervan is definitely the odds-on favorite to hold that seat, and we will definitely hold that seat.
At the same time, I guess looking a little bit long-term, that district is starting to shift when it comes to population, when it comes to politics, sort of like, say, Hamilton County here closer central Indiana is shifting more toward the Democratic side when it comes to demographics. What do Democrats, in your opinion, Brian, need to do to continue to be competitive in these districts where, at least on paper, it looks like they are becoming more Republican, which frankly is a whole lot of Indiana right now?
Well, we have to talk to the issues that affect voters, and that is economic issues, kitchen table issues. We have to address those issues, and we have to have the guts to call out the Republicans when they engage in these culture wars and not be afraid to point out, hey, can you write I'm against LGBTQ people, or I'm against voting rights on your bill or on your check to pay your bills? I don't think so. That's the problem with these culture wars Republicans engage in. They do not meet the average voter where they are. And that's where we Democrats have to. We have to meet the voters where they are, address their day-to-day issues, and have the courage to talk about those issues, and then also stand up to the Republicans when they engage in their culture wars. We have to do that.
Now, Ray, I would agree with Brian that if I were the Democrats, I'd want to talk about culture wars too, because I wouldn't want to talk about the economy. I wouldn't want to talk about inflation being the highest that it's been in 40 years. Wouldn't want to talk about gas prices when adjusted for inflation, or almost as bad as they were 10 years ago during the first Great Recession of 2008, 2009. So from that perspective, I understand. Now, with my Republican friends on the other side, these cultural issues, they only appeal to a certain segment of the audience. Unfortunately, that's the segment of the audience that shows up to vote.
We've also, if I can interject here, President Biden has created over 5 million jobs, and he's at one of the fastest growth rates for jobs of any first-term president in our country's history. So I don't want us to paint the picture that everything is doom and gloom with the economy, because President Biden's doing an excellent job with job creation.
Messaging is going to be a big part of our discussion here on the Insiders this week, and what that messaging will be, not only here in Indiana, but nationwide, as Democrats try to hold on to Congress. But back to some of the individual races, and Abdul, I'll pose this to you because it was a question that was asked in an Indianapolis Star story, I believe, within the past couple of weeks, about the chances of the state House and House Republicans becoming even more conservative than they already are, which is pretty darn conservative, considering some of the legislation that was proposed, some of which passed, some of which didn't this past session. And yet there are a lot of House lawmakers being challenged from the right, from even farther to the right than they are.
Yes, as I jokingly said, some people are so far to the right, they're basically on the ground. Because how can you be further to the right of people like Tim Wesco and Martin Carbour and Matt Levin and Peggy Mayfield? I mean, come on, let's be serious here. Now, with that said, though, if these, like I said, because it's a midterm election and turnout is usually smaller, I think that's the danger for for the incumbent and establishment candidates, because the people who are mad and upset are going to come out and vote. So organization is going to be key to make these things happen. Now, once again, it's going to be interesting, because if some of these ideologically right candidates win, when session comes back in January, I'm going to spend a lot of time in Rules Committee. My spider sense that's where a lot of those bills are going to end up going to die.
Well, that's provided that the current Republican leadership gets reelected. Will leadership be as strong, potentially, coming out of this primary season?
I think the leadership will. I think the question is going to be how many of the far right challengers actually win, particularly on the Republican side. They're at about 20, 21 challengers. My money is that basically probably about 3 or 4 get elected, because what the far right did was they understand anger, but they don't understand politics per se. Because in some districts they ran 2 people against an incumbent. I guess the logic was, hey, if we run 2 people, it increases our chances of winning. Well, actually, no. If you run 2 people, it actually decreases your chance of winning, because they just split the opposition vote. But once again, though, it's going to behoove those incumbents to be working hard, knocking on doors, not just running, television campaigns. I mean, this is where the rubber hits the road. It's just good old fashioned, knock down, drag out, house by house, neighborhood by neighborhood trench warfare.
Now, Brian, in the Democratic stronghold of Marion County, there are a couple of notable primary races. There's a state Senate race, District 46. I believe 5 candidates, 5 Democrats in that primary, but the race seems to be coming down to 2, maybe 3 of them, and one of them being Ashley Eason, the other being Andrea Hunley. And there's been a lot, not just in this race, but the Marion County clerk's race, and also the argument over the slating process in Marion County. That would seem to be a danger to Democrats of dividing them. Not that they would necessarily lose a race in November in those districts and those Democratic strongholds, but at a time when Democrats should be coming together, trying to work together to try to at least cut into that supermajority, they're going to be working against each other, perhaps with some hard feelings left over after some hard battles in primary season.
Well, that's true. There's no doubt about it, Ray. Yes, we have the slating process, but at the same time, the leadership of the Marion County Democratic Party must listen to the concerns of African American Democrats, and we can't win without African American Democrats. I mean, let's just be blunt here. Democrats cannot win without the Black vote. Period. So we must address those issues that are facing Black voters, and not try to sweep them under the rug. At the same time, we do have the slating process. So it's a balancing act. I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not. There's nothing easy in politics. But at the same time, you have to address the issues that concern Black Democrats. And if Marion County Democrats ignore those issues, we do so at our own peril. And if we lose, we brought it on ourselves. We cannot do that. We cannot do that.
And something else, Ray, too, that I think I need to keep in mind is you're right. The division may not necessarily impact this year's races, but it'll have a major impact on next year's local, on the council races and on the mayor's race. Because if African Americans are still mad and still upset come next year, whoever is a Democrat nominee is going to be in trouble, because one of the questions is going to be is, where were you? When we came to this slated issue, came to this African American issue? Joe Hogshead has basically taken a pass. Bob Osley has been silent. Andre's been trying to sort of split the difference between the two, kind of like taking Brian's position. But that's going to be a major impact if African Americans are still mad come next year, because Republicans can find the right candidate, the right moderate candidate, the right candidate who can appeal to all sorts of demographics and isn't afraid to campaign in all parts of the state. We could have a major change in our hands come next year to the mayor's race.
Otherwise, you're looking for a unicorn. I don't know if those Republicans even exist anymore.
Well, there's still a few out there,
and that's why I call them unicorns.
At the same time, and getting ahead of ourselves, we don't know whether Mayor Hogshead's going to run for re-election yet or not. I mean, because the conventional wisdom on that has wavered back and forth for a few years now. Before we move on to messaging with our insiders, Brian Gaddie, Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, and messaging for the midterms, one other race, Abdul, wanted to touch on with you, and that is the Republican primary for Secretary of State. And I wasn't really paying attention to this race until I saw something at indypolitics.org not long ago about fundraising and how much money was on hand for each of these candidates. And while there are 4 Republican candidates, one of them being the incumbent, Holly Sullivan, who is running for this position for the first time, actually, but she's being challenged by an old buddy of ours, quote unquote, Diego Morales, Republican, who, according to indypolitics.org, had about the same amount of campaign funds on hand as the incumbent, Holly Sullivan. And I was kind of surprised to see that, considering that Diego had a lot of issues with some very notable Republicans in the past and already one unsuccessful bid for Congress.
Yes, and also Diego has a work history with Secretary of State's office that is what would be considered, questionable at best. Now, with that said, though, Diego's also had time to run consistently since like last November. So getting money in the bank and increase his fundraising doesn't really hurt him. Now, what's going to be interesting, though, is after the primary, then we'll know who the delegates are. Because that's why raising these funds are so important, because Republicans, just like Democrats, for the Secretary of State's race, the Treasurer and the Auditor aren't on the ballot per se, but the convention delegates will be. And depending on who wins those delegate races, that's going to be interesting. And also, we just wrote in our cheat sheet, which we put out last night, the fact that there's actually polling going on amongst potential delegates. There's polling going on for the Secretary of State's race and the Treasurer's race, and also asking what type of Republican are you? Are you a Trump Republican? Are you a regular Republican or other type of Republican? What that other is, I have no idea what that means in the grand scheme of things. But once again, it's going to be those delegates who make those decisions. The delegates tend to be a little bit more conservative than sort of the average voter, because they go to these conventions where they're Democrat or Republicans, they're further to the right or further to the left. But that's going to be interesting to see, particularly once we get that delegate list, who the delegates are, then it's Katie bar the door, particularly on the Republican side, because the Secretary of State's race and the Treasurer's race are going to be off the chain.
Brian, Democrats haven't won a statewide race since Glenda Ritz won the state superintendent's race. Let's say that the more conservative delegates select a Diego Morales, who, again, just part of his history, Diego Morales was once fired by Todd Rokita. Just leave that right there, considering our population of our insiders here. But does that potentially help Democrats, considering it's a midterm year, going to be hard to turn out voters, but still, could that at least inch Democrats, considering the candidate you have for Secretary of State, toward a potential victory in November?
I think it can. If the Republicans make the mistake of nominating a far-right candidate that's out of the mainstream, that's seen as extremists, that'll allow us Democrats to poach a lot of those suburban Republican women voters in Hamilton County and other surrounding counties of Marion County, as the donut counties, as we call them. So the Republicans go that route, because let's face it, as our good friend Abdul was saying, you've got Trump Republicans, you've got, I guess, Pence type Republicans, other Republicans. It's like, I would say the others are the same Republicans. But the point is, you've got this division in the Republican Party. And we Democrats, for the love of God, have got to exploit it. I mean, some guys think we don't know how to play politics, and we've got to learn. When you see the Republicans having these divisions, Democrats, we must exploit those divisions and be able to poach some of their voters. I mean, this is political science 101. We've got to get this done right. We got to do it.
Well, I guess the next question is, and that was going to be our other major topic in the segment this week, and that is, what kind of messages do the candidates need, both Democrat and Republican, whether it's in Indiana, whether it's around the country, to get that message and to get voters to actually show up in November? Brian, we'll start with you. You mentioned the kitchen table issues earlier. Well, one of those kitchen table issues, as Abdul pointed out, is inflation is really high. And there's no sign that it's going down, at least not down dramatically anytime soon. Now, we could debate all day and all night as to the cause of the inflation, but it's very easy for Republicans to get on TV and say, well, inflation has spiked and look who's in charge, President Biden and the Democrats. How do Democrats counter that?
Now, the Republicans know darn well that inflation is high because there have been supply chain issues, because demand is up. I mean, let's face it, the country was shut down for about a year or so because of the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. And now there's pent-up demand, and now there's people out there buying and shopping. And because of that, that's one of the reasons that we have inflation. Now, I'm not making an excuse for inflation. We Democrats have to be cognizant of this issue. We've got to understand how it's hurting Americans, Hoosiers in their pocketbooks, and be able to address that issue directly and take steps toward trying to mitigate the effects of inflation as much as possible. But at the same time, I don't know if you gentlemen notice, we all own cars, gas prices are starting to come down because President Biden has been putting more oil into the supply chain system with oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. So President Biden is taking steps to try to mitigate the effects of inflation. And if Republicans try to stand there and say, oh, you Democrats are not doing anything about inflation, that would be totally disingenuous. That would be a political lie. We are doing things to try to lower inflation. We just got to get that message out. And the gas prices, a lot of that is also related to the war in Ukraine as well, which I hope we will be able to talk about here shortly.
And we'll cover that and whether or not that is part of midterm messaging. But Abdul, it would seem that Republicans potentially have an issue that they can win on, again, if people pay more attention to inflation than say, oh, by the way, a whole bunch of the Republicans who are running for office again wanted to overturn a legitimate election in 2020.
At the end of the day, it's the pocketbook issues that matter. Like Bill Clinton and Jim Scarborough said back in 1992, 30 years ago, we're all in college, it's the economy, stupid. And whether good or bad, the president gets the blame or the credit. It is just that simple. The economy is in a rough spot right now. Joe Biden gets the blame. If the economy was in a good spot, Joe Biden would get the credit, just like with Donald Trump, just like with Barack Obama, George W. Bush. I mean, you name it. I mean, this is how Americans tend to function. If the economy is going well, Bill Clinton would not have survived impeachment had the economy been going down the toilet. It's just that simple. And so I think the Republicans have an easier message, which is, hey, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? With gas prices going up, inflation going up, supply chain issues, that sort of thing. I think it's an easier message to sell. Now, Brian is right. When you start getting into the nuances of these discussions, it's a lot more complicated. I think Republicans have a much easier message saying, hey, if you want to keep more of your money, want to get inflation under control, want to get these gas prices under control, then vote Republican. It's just that simple.
How do, and this question that both of you can answer, because you have those issues, and then you have at the same time Republicans here in Indiana and across the country, at least a lot of them, pushing issues that are targeting the LGBTQ community. We went through the trans athlete debate here. That is the law, the ban on trans athletes, transgender girl athletes competing in sports. That's the law in some other states right now. You have the targeting of books that talk about LGBTQ issues in public schools. So you have that on top of the economic issues. I guess my question is, Which of those at the end of the day wins out?
Well, that's got to be our message as Democrats. We have to be aware. It's like since we're quoting Bill Clinton, I feel your pain. We've got to be cognizant of the fact that Hoosiers and Americans are dealing and grappling with these inflationary issues every day. We've got to understand that, and we've got to show empathy as Democrats, and to show that we're working on. I think voters will give us the freedom to be able to work on these issues if they see we're putting an effort forward and we show empathy. Now, regarding what you're saying, Ray, about the extremism of the Republicans, I think we can exploit that. I mean, we've got Republicans talking about banning books, Republicans pushing just really draconian anti-LGBTQ bills, turning them to law in some states. I don't think suburban Republican white women voters want to see the Republican Party go in that direction. So we need to be able to, on one hand, show that we're working on trying to lower inflation. Gas prices are starting to come down, while at the same time exploiting the extremism of the Republican Party and doing it in such a way that we point that out to voters so that they see it. And we've got to be able to do that effectively.
Abdul, do you think, again, the cultural issue debate, is that something that necessarily gets out the midterm voter? Because, in some black voters that I talk to here in Indianapolis, they're just not, they know the issues, they know what potentially could happen, but some of them, they feel kind of defeated. They say, well, it's going to happen one way or the other, whether we go to the polls or not.
Exactly. And that is a challenge for Democrats right now, because on the one hand, you've got the economy, you got, like I said, inflation, gas prices, supply chain issues, which are nuanced issues, but very easy to blame the Democrats for. On the other side, I think Republicans with these cultural issues, those are basically for their base. I really do think so, because I think the average suburban soccer mom doesn't really care because she's got inflation and gas prices to deal with here. So I think from that perspective, the cultural issues are more for the base. The economic issues are more for the general election. And right now, the win is at the back of the Republicans on both those issues right now. Regardless of what you think about them, I don't believe anybody should be discriminated against either. But once again, I think it basically boils down to the cultural issues are for the base, the economic issues are for the general.
And we will have to leave it at that because we are up against the clock, and I wouldn't want Abdul's students to miss out on the school day here.
Abdul-Hakim, actually, my students are fine today. We had our last day of the Wednesday this week, so now it's all final exam time.
Well, good for them, or good for you, one or the other. Abdul-Hakim Shabazz, Brian Gaddie, our political insiders. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.